And then James, you just let me know if there's ever any issues with the slide sharing or whatnot, but I'll just kind of keep moving on through here. So perfect. Diving into the overview here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us from, and welcome back to another one of our Kneat webinars. This week we are talking about Kneat eLogbooks, delivering client value and moving from validation to operations. My name is James Carey. I'm your host for today, and I want to just welcome you in and cover a few housekeeping items here at the start of our webinar. I want to talk a little bit about Kneat and who Kneat is, and Kneat GX is our software. So Kneat is currently a publicly traded company, publicly traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange. We are a global company with headquarters in Ireland, but clients, global sites, and deployments all around the world. A lot of our operations are in Europe, North America, and LATAM, meaning we are truly a global company that is working around the clock for your validation needs. We produce Kneat GX, is our software as a service lifecycle management program that enables regulated companies to work end to end and basically eliminate all of the paper-based validation practices that used to be standard and move into fully digital validation practices using any smart device that is connected to the internet. Now, that's a little bit about Kneat, a little bit about Kneat GX. There are plenty of resources in our resources tab to learn more about that if you're interested and want more information. But I'm going to go ahead and move into the bulk of our presentation today. And I'm going to welcome two people who are experts in digital validation and especially eLogbooks. If you've been to one of our webinars before or seen a demo, you've probably seen both of these ladies. We have joining us Lorna Whelan, a senior product manager here at Kneat, and Trish Reardon, one of our sales solutions engineers. I will let them introduce themselves and their backgrounds, but ladies, thank you so much for being here and for joining us.
Hi, everyone. I'm Trish Reardon. I will be doing the demonstration today. And happy to be working alongside Lorna today to talk all things eLogbooks.
Thank you for the introduction there, James, as well. Yes, my name is Lorna Whelan. As James said, I'm a senior product manager at Kneat for different products, I think CSV validation and for eLogbooks. But I'm just going to give you a tiny bit of my background, just so hopefully you'll know what realize that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to these things. But I have spent over 30 years in the life sciences industry, like industries that all of you who are watching here are in. So 25 years of that in pharma, a further 5 years in medical devices. And with all of those, the roles I had, some of them were in manufacturing directly, so in operations areas. But when they weren't in manufacturing, they were always to service manufacturing. So whether I was in MSAT, new product introductions, or project engineering or automation engineering, it's very few I haven't been in, but it's always about manufacturing. So that would be where I come from as well. So if you go to the next slide for me, please, James. Thank you very much. So as James mentioned in the introduction there, and what most of you here who are watching, people know that Kneat, yes, we are a leader in digital validation, which is our platform. However, some may not be as aware that our platform is also used by some of our customers, not just for validation data, but for some of their operations data. And this is an area that we plan to invest more in. And one of the areas I'm going to talk about here is with eLogbooks. It's one of our solutions. So this particular slide here is trying to depict that operations, when one talks about operations, it's not just manufacturing. It's all of the other areas which are also supported. So as most people who are here have been aware, when they've seen validation documentation before they digitalized or they're thinking about it, they see these mountains of paper. Well, imagine maybe even more times than that when you talk about all the other operations processes. Or maybe you haven't just got paper. Maybe you did digitize some of your forms and so forth, but you don't have a 21 CFR Part 11 compliant system. So it's important that if you are digitizing some of these systems or going from paper to it, that it's a compliant system. So with that in mind, I'll go on to the next slide, please. So the agenda here is kind of short and sweet. It's just to talk about logs, forms, and operations. And the reason I'm saying logs and forms is because Kneat eLogbooks, some people might think it's just about booklets. of stuff. You can have it in one-page forms, or maybe you have a whole lot of forms together and it's a booklet of forms. So it's for any of those. Then we're going to delve into just 3 case studies, customer case studies of customers who've been delighted to use Kneat for their logbook forms. And then Trish is going to give a demo. So thank you, James. Can you move it forward once, please? Yeah. So as in one of the other slides there, I'm just depicting here again that by digitalizing all types of log forms across operations, there's almost no department in your manufacturing site that it might not be touching. You decide yourself which are the important ones for you. And I'm not going to go through each of these. I'm just giving examples of 2 or 3 forms that I would have seen in my experience of being in various manufacturing facilities that would have been a lot of paper or that people had to fill out. Now, why are they even filling these out? There is a good reason. If you have an SOP and it states with this form that yes, we're going to fill this in for mainly GXP reasons, but many of these are for what I call EHS, environmental health and safety reasons. So as a chemical engineer, that would have been a big part of what I would have been doing with that whole safety thing. But these forms, they're not just done for the good of our health and getting people filling them, because it costs money for people to do these. So each one of them should have a good reason that people are filling them. And if there's a good reason, you need to be able to find it when you, not just for audits, but even when you're doing, I don't know, investigations for your NCs or CAPAs, or just day-to-day troubleshooting. And to give you a good story about one of them, I had an example of one where it kind of saved us a little bit. We had a flow meter which went out of calibration, and this particular one was only calibrated maybe once every 6 months. And we had a lot of, we'd say, batches in the meantime. But there was also a particular log which said for someone to do a manual check on that flow meter for another reason. But it was emptying it into a flask and seeing that it went up to a certain level. But when this particular issue came, now we had other ways to hopefully minimize the risk, but it was so easy to put a boundary on it because we were able to look at that particular check that we did and said, okay, we're not going to go back and try and prove everything for the last number of weeks or months or the 6 months. Maybe we just boundaried by, look, we're only looking back 1 week here. Everything was fine, it was grand, but it was a good reason. So there was a good reason to have this particular logbook. I think in times later, they may have decided to do a redundant flow meter, or they may not. I believe we did some more risk assessments, and it was deduced that we did not actually need another one. But it actually kind of saved somebody in that particular case. I also, as a chemical engineer, quite often found it really painful to find this information. But when I was doing troubleshooting or investigating after non-conformances or CAPAs, it was great. You needed to go get that information. If I had a digital system like Kneat eLogbooks when I was the area chemical engineer, I would have loved it, but we didn't, not then. One thing I'm just going to say there as well about the general offices, just giving another example there. One log which is really important, and me as a computer systems validation person, for a time we had to do an incident log. And if there had been any issues, it's really important to do that. We initially just put it onto Excel and once a month went in there and printed it out, but that's not sufficient. You need something printed out that as it happens, contemporaneous at the time. So I've got training records and so forth. There are so many reasons for you to digitalize them, but we'll go on to the next one here now. Thank you, James. Lovely, we're still on. So most people who are here, I'd say the vast majority, already have gone on the journey or beginning to go on the journey with Kneat for digitizing their validation documentation. And these benefits are basically the same benefits that why you went on that journey for digitizing your validation documentation. And I can understand why that would be the priority for someone to go, because you can't continue operating at all unless you have a validated process or if you're making your changes and so forth. So you made the right decision, yes, to digitize the validation documentation first. But as I said there, you're now looking around and saying, look at all this other paperwork here, look at all these areas that I'm trying to find the information and I can't find it. So you are still probably on the same risks. Even for a non-GXP form, for an EH&S form, if you can't stand by that form and say that the people who signed it were the people who signed it, or that it's legible, or that you can find it, it's not worth the paper it's written on. And as you're aware, paper, to try and be digitally compliant and data integrity compliant with paper is difficult. And one thing I want to point out here as well is, of course, yes, Kneat does have the full 21 CFR or Part 11 compliance, as in audit trail and electronic signature and all of the controls therein. But our electronic signature is also built in app. So it's built by us for our system. There are some other systems where they might put on a plugin, they add a widget for an electronic signature or a different type of signature. It's maybe not as tight as what we are doing, so we stand by our electronic signature. And then the other one I'm mentioning there from risk point of view, and some of you here may have used it or may not be using it yet, but even in validation, you can use our collections area or with Kneat eLogbooks. And what the beauty here is that you can put your PDFs into this safe, secure area. So you're still in Kneat when you have your auditor come in. They can be over the shoulder if they want, or even be given access to it. But if that's all they're seeing, they're not in Kneat proper, where the risk is that they may see other areas to say, oh, maybe can you call up that link there and let me see what's happening. So some customers, the way they get around this is they export to PDF and they may put it into like a SharePoint. But why go to that extra step? You're saving yourself time by, in Kneat itself, putting it directly into your collections area. Don't have to use it, but I'm just saying it is actually also helping you with risk and with time. So time. We have various different examples of customers who have actually used us and are showing up to 65% faster in time that they're saving by using Kneat eLogbooks. This is mainly due to the collaborative nature as well of being able to do all your approvals and reviews in parallel, not in series, but also calling up reports, finding the information. There's so many areas that you can save time in, but just as in creating these and reviewing and approving them alone saves a huge amount of time. Then this is not to be sniffed at, but the ease of use, especially when most people who are filling in your logbooks, these aren't your validation people who now have maybe been trained in validation. These will generally be technicians, operators, so forth, out on the line in the laboratories, and they've been used to filling in paper. So the closer this looks to what you did on paper, the easier it is to train these people in. And all they need to be able to do is to train in to go to the particular logbook, and then they're typing stuff in. And you'll see later with Trish where they have so many advantages, even for the correcting of your errors. I do remember many's the time where you'd see an operator, they've crossed something out and then initial and dated it, and then forget, oh no, that's not right, and have to cross that out again. You get a very messy logbook. You do not have that with Kneat. You can see all the corrections, and no matter how forgetful they are, everything is kept and every correction is noted. So one other point I want to note there is the scalable. The scalability is really important. You do not need Kneat process engineers every time you've decided, I want another department, I'm going to actually digitize their logs. Because once you have your power users trained up, hopefully you've learned even in validation, you don't need the vendor to come with you every time. We're there if you want, absolutely, if you think that's what's needed. But there's so much you can do and expand yourself. And then the last point I'm just going to mention there, and it may be referred to in the demo later, Trish, but where our customers are using what we call equipment entities, but you have an equipment object. It may be one that you might have integrated with, for example, your SAP system or your ERP system. And that can be declared in your logbook. And the beauty of that is that thereafter, when you look at the relationships, every validation document and every logbook document that declared that is relevant to that equipment will be all noted in a very easy to find way. So that can be quite powerful. I just noted one other thing there about batch numbers. Like, we don't at the moment have an entity called batch numbers, but it is something that you can easily create. So if you did, again, that is something we discussed with one of our our customers. They'd like it to be able to, rather than the person typing it in, that they would actually call in the batch numbers that they already had saved. Again, could be integrated, and you will have less typing for the person to do, less room for error. And then lastly, but not by least, the least reason, is to save money. Both of those over there save you money, because by reducing risk, you're spending less time on your audits and so forth. But by saving time, yes, you're saving money. Also, the physical storage, paper, all of that saves money. And our customers also want to improve their sustainability scores. So not only are you saving money, but you're also going up in the in your KPIs for sustainability by having less paper. Now, we'll see it in the next slide that there is one of our case studies where the customer had saved almost $1 million just in 1 year. So that'll be a good part to bring me there, actually. Just continue on here. So the first one here is a CDMO leader. I think one of the top 10 CDMO leaders. And what's interesting about this particular one is the reason they came to Kneat and decided to use us for logbooks is they had an audit, an FDA audit, and there was an informal observation made, not for RID 3, but about their paper logbooks. So it got them thinking, and they put a project together, and that team looked at where would they consider doing a pilot on it, and they came up with a number of logbooks that they would digitize. I think in the end, there was like 50% of the logbooks in maybe over 3 sites they digitized, and they had over 60% time reduction. More important there, I said it was 950, I think, thousand, but just short of 1 million in savings, and obviously potential for more because they had a lot more logs and a lot more sites. So the last way I'd left it there when I was talking to one of the CSMs is that they were requesting for more digitalization. Again, those are projects, you have to get the okay from your company and so forth, but they wouldn't necessarily need us for all of that. They could do a lot of that themselves. So the middle one I'm showing here is another company. It was one of the biotech companies, and where they put us in initially, again, not all their sites, I think it was maybe more than 3, I think it was 3 sites, and mainly the GXP laboratories, but also some operations. And what they gave us some data there. There's actually a written up case study, which is on our Kneat site, but the salient data from that case study is they eliminated 50,000 plus printed pages, over 12,000 hours saved, and that was avoided $500,000 in annual costs for what they did. And one of the examples they gave there, the logbook issuance, even, like, that's so simple, just less than half a day. A huge amount of these, I meant to say in the other one as well, is to reduce the human error. What people had found is that the number of deviations they had with their logbooks went down through the floor, because a lot of these deviations were due to illegibility or missing information. And then the last one there, the Recipharm Advanced Bio, rather than me speaking to it there, we do actually have a video clip, James, which you may play now, video testimonial from, I think, one of the validation director, who was paramount to them putting in Kneat eLogbooks into Recipharm. So could you play that for us, please, James?
My name is Kailash Rathi. I am Director of Quality Systems and Validation at Recipharm. My role in Recipharm as a Director of Quality System is to be in charge and administrator of multiple quality systems. As a system administrator, I have multiple responsibilities in the Kneat. I also own quality validation side, so we also review and approve documents from validation side as a QA. However, my daily responsibility also includes moving documents or making sure system is compliant and there is no changes made to the system that will impact the qualified state of the system. Using Kneat from multiple different companies and implementing at different companies, what I like about Kneat is a flexibility. It provides a lot of flexibility for review approval process. It's very easy to use. The interface is very easy, very less training required for getting users in the system and training the users. It also provides an ability to link documents from one workspace to another workspace so far, or one folder to another folder. Makes very easy. With the new archival feature coming, that's going to be very one of my other favorite feature, to archive document when we decommission a specific piece of equipment. Biggest benefit of doing that is I don't have to create a logbook to record all the logs. That is completely gone. Second thing is archival. Archival is on the same row. When I'm creating a document, like creating a logbook and issuing a logbook, on that same row at the end, I'm using the witness column as an archival feature. So when the document is written back to QA, I'm signing off on that row and closing the row. And I have signature panel on each page that will take care of the entire page as a review and approval by QA. So my logbook never ends. I always have a capability to duplicate it if I require to. By digitalizing electronic logbooks that for QA perspective, example log of notebooks, earlier we had to develop a form, get it approved in a different system, print the form, create a logbook, then QA will have that logbook to make entries of other logbook that they issued. However, now it's in Kneat, they just log into Kneat, they just sign the row, and they basically are done issuing the logbook. So the benefit is I don't have to spend time on creating logbook. I don't have to spend archiving that created logbook anymore because it's all at one place.
Thank you, James. And that's as I said, it's great to have a customer speak to what they have as well. Could you put on just one thing, because I think I've just got to be asking Trish now to get in with the demo.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Let me go ahead and start sharing my screen. And what I'm going to walk you through today, we're going to start with really what the execution record looks like.
All right. Thank you very much for that, Trish and Lorna. Yeah, Trish, you can stop sharing your screen there. Perfect. So we do have a few FAQs, frequently asked questions, that we put in the chat here. Can we see, the first one here is, can we see in the reports that you've showed how many logbooks we created, opened, or approved that month?
Did you answer that, Trish?
Quick answer, yes. Yes, the reporting functionality is going to work very, very similarly to the other reports that we have. So you can see when logs are created, you can see how long they've been open. All of that information is gathered and can be in the dashboard.
I think it's one of the advantages of it being a separate discipline, Trish, is about it being a separate discipline. You can actually call up just or by name either, but by discipline is actually particularly powerful for that filtering in DocMetrics report.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think we lost your audio.
There we go.
There we go.
Got to unmute. I'll keep going through our FAQs that we have submitted here, but I'll encourage the audience as well to submit any of theirs, anything that we don't get to today. If we run out of time, we'll still be answered, and we'll follow up with you after the webinar. For our next question here, how accessible is the raw data audit trail? Are all changes easy to follow, and do they require comments?
So there is a configuration on the front end of the application that if you do make a change, you can require that first reason for change and electronic signature. Otherwise, you can have it just when you're signing off on the row once again. But it is captured in the audit trail. It's important to understand any change that is made is going to be readily available in the audit trail for viewing.
I'd recommend that you do have that switched on. It's up to your company.
Mine's always turned on, so it's normal for me.
And then the audit trail, remember, it's also a configuration thing. We have recently allowed that more than just the user admin can actually look at the audit trail. You may have other people who you want to be able to look at the audit trail, and you can export it even into an Excel and so forth. So the audit trail is, I think maybe 2 or 3 releases back, Trish, is much more accessible for doing filtering and so forth on.
Yes.
Okay, next question here. Does format creation require IT or vendor support, or can QA users create and modify logbook formats independently, similar to using Word?
It is very similar to Word. However, you'll notice that when we are creating tables or using tables, we have some features that are included, like especially during test execution. You can create, using a drop down or adding the signature column or the performed by or the witness. I like to call them smart features or neat features when you're creating, but they're not tools that IT needs to be involved in. Anyone with the permissions to create would be able to utilize the tools to design the tables the way that they would need to.
So I think the way we envisage it as well is you would have, like you did for validation as well, you may have your power users who create the templates. So you will give them the permission to create the templates.
Yep.
Your X number of hundreds or thousands of technicians who are filling it in, they don't need to do that.
Right.
So for them, they never did it for their paper, and they're not going to start doing it for the digital either. So yes, the people that you need to create it, they don't need to be IT professionals at all. No.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. And we did have a couple questions come in from the audience now, so I'll move to Brian's question from the chat. Is there a separate license cost for users who only need access to complete logbooks, or i.e. different to protocol standard users, executors? What do the licenses look like?
Yeah, no, and there is. And again, it would be talking to your account manager. But yes, we have some of the investment we're doing here is that there's a separate license for all those people that all they're doing is only just filling it out, and they're not actually creating the templates and doing all that management. So there is different license costs. So hopefully one that would be very appealing to you. So there is a different license cost for just the many people who would be just filling them in.
Yep.
So account managers, yes, you can talk to your CSMs and account managers.
Excellent. Another quick question from Sid in the chat here. Pretty sure I know the answer to this one and can answer it, but in case you have anything else to add, is it SaaS, PaaS, or IaaS based? It is SaaS, right? Software as a service?
Yeah,
yes.
SaaS, yeah.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Sid and Brian, for those questions. Let me see. Yep, Brian says great. Thank you in the chat as well. So final question from our FAQs. Does the system support real-time or auto-saving of entries? Specifically, if a user closes the application or clicks the X to X out before submission, is the entered data preserved?
I can let you answer that as well. I think as long as you move the cursor out of the cell, it's saved, isn't it?
Yes.
It's saved. So you don't have to hit a save button, but while your cursor is still in the button, it will assume that you may still be in the process of editing. So that one might not. But once you move out of a cell, it can't but be saved.
Yeah.
And it's in the audit trail.
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That is everything that we have here. I'll give you a moment since we have a few minutes left here. We're at 45, so we're at a good time. Okay, hold on. So Caroline says in the chat, okay, so our business is looking to digitize logbooks. The other system being looked at is another system that I don't want to really call out by name. Do you have an idea of what advantages you would have over other systems? I'll just say.
And hopefully, hopefully I've mentioned a few of them. I was being very, when I mentioned about the in-app electronic signature, that needs to be really looked at. We even have it that when you're in a row and you sign, you might have noticed that when you fill in, say, 6 pieces of information and you change one of those, the electronic signature at the end goes and you have to do it again. There's just little things like that which we brought into Kneat that are there. And again, you're not having to add a widget. We do have that whole, which might not have shown that the pull down,
the drop down
choice and so forth. And the fact that we can actually link it as well to what we're calling our entities, which could be integrated with your ERP system or so forth. So there is, you're pulling on some benefits of what you may be doing already within Kneat. And of course, we're always striving to improve. As I mentioned before, we will continue to invest in how to make these things easier for people to fill in, maybe different data types and so forth. And we believe we have a good cost point as well. So all good benefits.
Any other questions? I will mention that with the eLogbooks, because Kneat itself is a SaaS solution, as long as you have access to the internet, you are able to complete your logbooks. Ideally, you'd be using a tablet of some sort, but it doesn't have to be the latest and greatest tablet. So I know we get that question a lot. It's like, oh, we have to invest in, thousands of tablets. No, you don't. It can, as long as there's access to the internet and you can pull up the application, then you can complete.
It's like a browser. If you can open up a Chrome browser or an Edge browser or whatever, it will work. The one thing I did want to point out there as well, what some of our existing customers have found it very useful in logbooks, they're excited by it, is that execution record, which you were showing there, Trish. It's a bit like when you have, and it is, you can do the validation as well. When you have pre-approved it, it's like when the person at the moment they would have gone away and photocopied it and then brought it down to the line to you. They photocopied it with the pre-approved signatures, and you can use it again and again. An empty one. So when you hopefully ask for a demo, you get to see that a little bit more, because some of our existing customers even were saying, oh, it's very, very useful for logbooks in particular. So you're not changing your form, and you can, it's like you're copying the whole thing and reusing it. And remember, you were showing there about doing page by page. If you only want your logbook just to only have one page and to have a fresh logbook for everyone thereafter, your execution record can do that. So it's a good one to see in practice.
All
right. Sorry about that. We have had a couple more questions come in. So we have a few more minutes here, if you all don't mind.
Sure.
So Sid asks another question here. As a CSV consultant, what are the major challenges throughout the process? Would you say? This is kind of an open-ended question. So what do you two see as some of the most common challenges that people face that they look to Kneat to help solve?
With CSV, and I just want to clarify, is this CSV with respect to logbooks in your CSV process, or just CSV in general?
Let's say logbooks for now, since this webinar is focused on logbooks.
Well, I did mention one there as a CSV system that you should have your incident. It's really important that you actually document any of the incidents. You may go along and put some of them down that they're not actually of GXP nature, whatever. I found when I was managing an automation area that we had to note everything, especially if for some reason the data went down or whatever. So we noted everything. We then did categorize them and said, right, that's not, we don't need to do an exception report for that. We don't need to. So you did everything and then said, these are the only ones I might need to do an exception report for. To be able to do that digitally, I think is a great idea. Now from a CSV, if I broaden it a little bit, you are using a computerized system for doing this, but you're doing it with all of the best data integrity controls that you can possibly think of, have the full audit trail. What I think is really good is that whole thing, the correction business, that you have the whole history there. You don't even need to go to the audit trail to see that history. You have it in the log. So I think, Trish, when you showed the history, you could display it. When you actually export it to PDF, if you wanted to, all of that is kept in it. So it's so transparent. But yes, I probably might not be getting your question 100% right there from a CSV perspective. But yeah, no, it's perfectly controlled.
Right. Excellent. Thank you for that. And I will throw out here for everyone who is maybe looking for more information, maybe wants to dive a little bit deeper into this. I'll put a pop-up on your window now to schedule a demo. So we have one-on-one demos available with sales solution engineers like Trish or her colleagues, that we can dive in deeper into a lot of these questions, a lot of these specific use cases for you, your organization, organizations you work with as a consultant. Those demos are very useful for that. And it's a one-on-one live demo call with somebody. You don't have to go through chat or Q&A like you do here. That being said, let me mark that as answered. Sorry, we didn't answer Jillian's question yet. Jillian asked, can data entry and verification be done simultaneously across users, i.e. multiple users be editing and accessing the same logbook at the same time on different devices?
Yes.
hopefully different rows though, because I
Different-
think you
hopefully
could
different
have
rows.
one row and then other person's doing another row, or you may have duplicated, like the example you gave would be the line process one. There you had one page for a logbook item, but it was several tables. And you don't want to wait because that's on line 1. Yes, you can create your duplicate of that. So I can be in one page while Trish is in another, or I could be in one row while Trish is in another. Yes, it's which you can't really do on paper.
Yeah,
Right.
and you would actually, that if Lorna was in the row below me, it would be highlighted, signifying that somebody else was in that row. So you would have that visual cue.
Excellent.
It's very well alerted.
And one of the questions that led me to prompt about the one-on-one demos as well, Carolyn does ask, do you have an idea what time frame you would expect to look at for importing 100 different templates into Kneat?
I'd say we don't. Probably what you often do as part of our demos is sometimes people might send us a few examples of templates. We may do that for them. For Trish, you probably have done that.
Yeah.
So it's the complexity, because one thing we have seen is variety is the spice of life. And some people have very simple ones, like you mentioned there, where it was just one table. I mean, God, that's very simple to do. Or it could be a few tables in each one. There's different complexities to it, so it does depend on that. But I'd say having that demo for one-to-one will answer a lot of those questions for you.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of that can also be helped set up in the set up an onboarding process when coming into Kneat. Right, our sales solutions engineers, our customer success managers help you set up some of those templates. 100 might be a lot, but I'm not going to say they won't do it.
But
they'll do that during the implementation.
Right.
Yeah, but
Right.
definitely a few, like, and showing maybe some of your slightly more complicated ones, some simpler ones. But yeah, so we definitely do that during a demo. You probably have 2 or 3, maybe 2 templates anyhow. But the 100 templates probably not for a demo. But just we might have a look at them though. If you can give us examples of them, we'd have a good idea from the complexity of them.
Right. So to get an answer to Carolyn's question, yeah, it's difficult to say without looking at what they are, how complex they are, but we're always open for a challenge and we're always looking to talk more. So Carolyn, I'd say email us at info@kneat.com. And in fact, I'll flag your question here to have someone reach out to you afterwards as well to help get you that answer. But Trish, Lorna, I really want to thank you for taking the time today for that demo, for all of your insights. Lorna, this has been very impactful, very helpful. And I'll put up our contact card here for the audience to take a look at as I end out. I want to draw your attention to a couple more resources here. On the right-hand side of your video in the resources tab, there are links to follow us on LinkedIn. There's another link to book a demo, as well as a couple other links to see what Kneat is talking about. Now, I want to encourage everyone to follow us on social media on that LinkedIn profile, where you'll see not only where we're going to be at in events around the world, our in-person events where a lot of our representatives and solutions engineers go to show off Kneat in person, but also what I'm partial to is our webinar program. We have webinars just about every week for a month that we're looking at a variety of content within and around Kneat. Coming up in July is actually a big partner month. Every week we're going to be hearing from another partner about how they're using Kneat GX within their own companies or with companies that they consult with. And there's a lot of information there about adopting CSA, about integrating AI, integrating API integrations, a lot of technical information. And at the end of every month, we have another group demo where the webinar is focused solely on a demonstration, like from one of our sales solutions engineers. I want to thank the audience again for all of your questions. Your engagement here is very important to us. Thank you for being here and spending the time. As the webinar ends out here, you will see a post-event survey come up on your screen. We really appreciate it if you take a minute or two to fill that out. Let us know how we did, but more importantly, let us know what you want to hear about coming up in the future on Kneat demos, Kneat GX webinars. We always want to know what you're looking to hear and be able to deliver that content. So with that, I will say thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, and we will see you on the next Kneat webinar. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.